Avery, whose show is this? And we're live. Welcome, everybody, here to the Lakers Lounge Podcast. I am Anthony Irwin, Senior Lakers Insider for Clutch Points, joined on this fine Thursday night by Raj Shapalu, Senior Scouting Analyst and Video Analyst for Silver Screen and Roll. I just added a senior to your name. How excited are you about that?
Let's do it. Let's keep going.
You know what's funny is that's essentially how it works. All right, true story. I asked Clutch Points for a senior in my name simply because I'm old. And they were like, sure, that works.
I always wondered where those came from.
That's what it is. So from now on, Jake, if you're listening, you have to Raj's title now has to have a senior in it. Today on the show, we're going to be talking about a little bit about the game that we just watched. I have a couple of points to take from it. I know that you mentioned Dalton Knecht on Twitter. So I'm sure we'll probably mention that. We are going to have on this episode the definitive Austin Reaves conversation. After this, nobody else can have a conversation about Austin Reaves or trading him or the season that he just had, anything like that, without paying Raj and me residuals personally. So that's how the bulk of the episode is going to go. And then in order to get Raj on the show today, I had to promise that we were going to talk about Christian Koloko as well. So if there's time, we will talk.
Yeah, why is it not on the rundown? Like, why is Christian Koloko's name not on?
You know, it's like it's in fine print in white just below trade market. So, you know, if you look super duper closely, it's right there.
Okay.
All right, let's quick reminder, please hit that subscribe button, please hit that like button, please hit that share button. All of those things help the show. And then if you guys are listening in the morning via podcast, hit that subscribe button wherever it is that you get your podcast, preferably on Odyssey, because I'm a company man. Really quickly, just super duper quickly before we move on to the definitive Austin Reaves conversation. Couple of points that I wanted to make about the game that we just watched here with the Denver Nuggets. The Nuggets just fired their head coach. They just fired their general manager, and they are one game away potentially from a Western Conference Finals. Now, if they do make it to the Western Conference Finals, it's against the team that they would least want to see there. Minnesota has absolutely had their number dating back to last year and then especially this season. But a couple of things stuck out to me watching this game. One, Jamal Murray's sick game, quite a bit better than Luka's sick game. Two, the Jamal Murray, Nikola Jokic two-man game is the John Stockton, Karl Malone two-man game of this generation. And three, Julian Strawther goes out there and plays the game of his life, 15 points in a absolute, must win. It's an elimination game. David Adelman, a rookie head coach, instead of completely shutting down his rotation and succumbing to the over-reliance that JJ Redick did, he actually expanded his playoff rotation to include Strawther. Strawther goes out there and credit to him for playing the way that he did. Raj, my takeaway from this is that gambles like that make you look like a genius if they work out. And then I think the downside to it isn't exactly where I many would think. And I can kind of understand where people are coming from with the Dalton Knecht aspect of this conversation. But to me, those coaches in this new apron world, as Rob likes to call it, those coaches that do whatever they can to abide by their identity and instill trust in their players and follow up and reward that trust in their players, those coaches, those organizations are always going to have an upper hand on the coaches who do the opposite.
What's interesting, that reminded me of the Lonnie Walker game where Lonnie Walker came in and just
Oh, great
had
point. Yeah.
right, like 9 or 10 points on Steph Curry. Julian Strawther is a specialist. I mean, he's a scorer, but he's really a shooter for them, and they kind of needed some outside shooting. And where I think David Adelman kind of gets an advantage here, you use this phrase a lot where you're building the plane in midair. He doesn't really have time to game plan or, like, oh, this is what I want or strategize. It's just, I'm coaching that game. Like,
Yeah.
look, if you're not playing well, you play 10 minutes, right? Or if you are playing well, you play 25. DeAndre Jordan, we might need you. Like, just be ready. And this is through the whole roster, right? He's like, whoever I need, I'm gonna play. Whoever I don't want to play, I'm not gonna play. I'm not doing anything else. There's no politics, there's no emotion, there's no I'm playing this player over this guy because of my, preconceived notions. This is when I'm just playing each game by game, and I think he's had an advantage with that. He was thrown right into the fire, and he could either burn or he can kind of walk out of it. And I thought he's really found his way. And one advantage also that he has is he's been with this group for a while. And to your point with Murray and Jokic, it reminds me a lot of the Steph Draymond, where it's you will never catch up to the experience they have. It's impossible. You will never beat them with experience. They have so many reps on you that it's just impossible to outthink them. So you got to be more athletic. You got to run them out. You got
Gotta
to
be lucky.
Yeah, no, for sure. But I thought OKC had the game plan. They went up, I think, by 8 or maybe they tied the game. And then Julian Strawther had the 3 threes. And that really ended the game to me. It went, 89-80 or something like that. And then in the fourth quarter, it was a struggle. Jalen Williams or J-Dub just had an awful game again tonight. I think he's shooting like 30% from the series. So I'm sure he'll want to kind of
Little fraudy.
Well, this is second straight year,
is
right?
what I'll call him.
Yeah, second straight year he's really struggled in the second round. So it's going to be a big game 7 for him going home on Sunday. But this is just super high intensity basketball, and every time I watch these two play, I feel like we're so close, but yet we're so far. Like, I watch these two and going, like, our intensity just never reached this, right? This is a peak level of both teams playing really high level basketball. And obviously the two MVPs, Jokic is just absolutely insane. That's the touch he has and his ability to just raise his level of play. So no, this has been a super fun series. I think OKC is growing up by the game. Chet is still in his third year, whatever it was. So you could see him kind of getting used to the physicality and everything. But David Adelman, man, might walk into a conference finals. Like, that's nuts from where he was, a month ago, where he was, leading maybe the most burning franchise out there. Now they're 1 win away from, and Jokic as well. Like, you just can't bet against Jokic. I'm watching him Anthony, he hits every, even the game in Oklahoma City, that one-legged three. And I knew it was
going. The OKC fans be like, oh, so that's what that feels like. You fuckers won that game. Shut up.
I knew that was going in too. I saw it going up. Yeah. I'm like, that's 100% in. And it just swishes perfectly. It's going to be an insane game 7.
Yeah, I really hope that Aaron Gordon is able to go there. David Adelman was asked after the game about his hamstring, and he says that the concern level is high on that front. So we'll see what comes out of that. It just seems so stupid that the NBA would have a first round last as long as it does, and then just immediately dive just straight into every other game when there's no rush. There's nothing on the other side of the NBA playoffs. There's no rush whatsoever. Like, you know what's waiting for us, Raj? The abyss. What? The sports abyss. It's just baseball. I love baseball, but that's it. It's just baseball and golf. That's all we have waiting for us.
And Summer League.
That's
Summer League's coming. Summer League in July.
Okay. Sure. But anyway, so incredible game there. Incredible game 6. Kudos to the Nuggets for working that out. And I think one of the lessons that I'm going to take from this is do not, like, if you're an NBA team going into these playoffs, the longer that you can hold on to your identity, right? The longer that you can abide your identity, the better off you're going to be. And I think you look at the teams remaining, and they have all, while they've taken, punches to the face, and while it's been difficult at times, like those teams that have found ways to, even if they get away from it briefly, get back to their identity. Like that's I think one of the foundational keys to success in the postseason is whatever made you successful in the regular season, the longer you can carry that through into and throughout the postseason, the better off you're going to be. I'm actually really happy for the Nuggets. I'm rooting like it's been kind of crazy how much I realize I'm rooting for the Nuggets in the series over the Oklahoma City Thunder. I find that the Thunder and their fans and the people who talk about like Sam Presti so annoying to me, in that like it's like the tech bro thing where if you don't get what the Thunder are doing, you're a moron. It's like they may as well be called the Oklahoma City Teslas. Like it's just they're just so the way that they're talked about, it just kind of like it just really kind of, there's a lot of friction in my eardrums when I hear the way that they're talked about. And it's like, look, man, maybe I'm old school, but if you trade for a better player than Daniel Tice at the trade deadline this year, you're probably not heading to a game 7 before you even reach the Western Conference Finals. And if I make that point on Twitter, I'm the idiot. I'm the idiot.
You just don't want them crowned before they get the crown, right? I think that's kind of where
they have been. Sam Presti was called the best GM in sports before this season even started. He won the executive of the year this year. He didn't trade for Luka.
Well, see, I go back and forth on this because the Cavs just got eliminated, right? And they won 64 games. Now everyone's like, the regular season doesn't matter, which, like, to me as a person who really dives in every game and lives every single game, I want the regular season to have something where it does matter, where it's like it does have real ramifications for the postseason. So we'll see if Oklahoma City is able to close it out. But Anthony, they won 68 games. 68. That's a ton of basketball wins.
Regular season basketball is just so different. It's never been more different from postseason basketball. It's never been more different.
I think that's fine. I think that's a fair assessment. My point is, there's a difference between a team winning like 54 games and losing, right? A 68 win team, that's an absurd amount. Like that's a dominant team that should have a ton of stuff that translates. And I think it has in some respects. I think Denver, obviously they have the best player in the world. And the playoffs, of course, slow it down.
But what have I said all year, Raj? I've said it all year. It's like I'm not quite as afraid of the Thunder as I should be because they profile as a monster. But here's what I look at when I look at the Thunder. I look at Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who is not the best player in the NBA. He's going to be the MVP, but he's not the best player in the NBA. Their second best player is Jalen Williams, who was pretty bad last postseason and has been bad in this series again. And my concern with Jalen Williams is that like his game doesn't make life easier on Shai's. And then outside of that, their defense is incredible. But their defense is incredible because they come at you in waves and they play super physically and they foul you on every single play. And I say that as a compliment. They foul you on every single play. But that's what every team does in the postseason. So when their defense comes back to earth, or not comes back to earth, but when earth catches back up to their defense, when the rest of the field catches back up to their defense in terms of intensity, physicality, attention to details, stuff like that, and then they also don't have necessarily the offensive firepower to make up for that, that's what I've always been kind of worried about. And that's exactly what we've seen in this series. And we didn't see it in the first round because Memphis is the worst team in the field, basically. But we've seen it in the second round, and I think we're going to see it again in the Western Conference Finals, and eventually again in the finals. Because what makes the Thunder special, what got them to 68 wins, I don't think it does translate over to the postseason, because everybody does that when you get to the postseason.
Yeah, there's some of this that they're going 90 while everyone else is going like 60. And then once everyone catches up, there's some of this that they close the bar. I think the way that the Thunder look at it is they play like 12, 13 guys in the regular season, right? And I think that's how all these guys are fresh. They have a huge rotation of really good NBA players, and I thought they made really smart moves over the summer. I was with you on not doing anything at the deadline was a mistake, but like when every team cuts it down to 8, you kind of have to have an 8. And I think that's where they're struggling to look at. Like, to me, Caruso should not be coming off the bench. Caruso's like their third best, most important player right now. He's been fantastic this whole
He was guarding
series.
Jokic down the stretch.
He was
they were starting possessions with him on Jokic.
Yeah, and like I think he's been physical. I think he's hit his threes. Like, he's one of the few guys that have really stepped their game up, right? There's a few have kind of been the same in the regular season. I thought Caruso has risen in the playoffs for him, but yeah, I think he should have been starting already. I don't understand him still coming off the bench. We'll see in game 7 what happens. But yeah, huge game 7. I think this is a franchise defining game 7 for them. 68 wins, you lose in the second round. There's some questions and there's some decisions that have to be made for this team. So there's going to be a lot of stuff riding on this game 7 for sure.
Unfortunately for the Thunder, the Kendrick Perkins predicted a 10-point win for them. So sorry, OKC. All right, let's dive on into the Austin Reaves conversation. Okay. And unless you want to do the Dalton Knecht thing as part of that conversation.
I thought we were doing Koloko. I was like, I'm prepared.
No, well, we could do Koloko at the end. And right. I know that you asked a question about what we saw from Strouder. Could we not have seen that from Dalton? Did you want to touch on that?
Yeah, I'll just do really quick. Our guy Mike, Canyon Driver, asked
one of the smartest people in Lakers Twitter.
Incredible, especially everyone should follow him. Especially during the draft coverage, he's amazing. But he asked, could Dalton have done what Strouder did? I don't see why not. Strouder came in and hit 3 pretty just open threes off of Denver penetration. I thought that's something that Dalton could have done. People are saying Dalton couldn't survive defensively. Strouder's not playing in this series. Like, this is literally, he was just thrown in this moment. We've seen Dalton hit threes. We've seen him catch fire. We've seen him start and average like 20 a game in a series. I thought that was one of the mistakes as well. Just losing Dalton entirely. I didn't say you had to keep him in your rotation, Anthony, but just not having him involved. Like, that's separate that from Denver, right? David Adelman has his whole roster involved. Every player is ready to check in at a moment's notice. The Lakers, Dalton kind of knew he wasn't getting in the game. So I don't see why not. Why couldn't Dalton just check in and be a spot up guy, especially when we were struggling as much as we were to score? Like, multiple games under 100 points, just having a flamethrower that we decided to never turn on. I thought it was a mistake.
I think there's a middle ground here because I was always really nervous about what Minnesota would have done to him defensively. And Denver is better equipped to, like, defensively to throw Strouder out there and not be picked onto this. Also, OKC doesn't have an Anthony Edwards who's going to go out and pick on him the way that I think Ant would have. Like, Shea's wired a little differently to where I think his offense comes within the rhythm of the greater offense. Whereas Ant, if he saw Dalton out there, he would have. Did you see the quote today from the Dave McMenamin article where he was like, something along the lines of, and I'm paraphrasing this off of the top of my head, but like, he was like, Finch was saying, yeah, we got to work for the best play. We got to work for the best play. And Ant was like, what if I'm just the best play?
Oh, yes.
So, so I don't think we would get a quote quite like that from Shea. And I kind of say that as a bit of a compliment too. I also think, though, if you put Dalton out there on a court with Luka or with Austin, that there are too many guys to pick on in that spot. So I think that makes a bit of a difference. But what I will say to your point is throw him out there for a couple of minutes. Just say, hey, dude, go shoot. Yeah. When I played in high school or whatever, that was my job on my varsity team, was like, hey, the other team's in like a super conservative zone. Just go shoot. Just like go stand out there and go shoot. It's the only thing I was good at a varsity level. It's like, just go shoot. and see what. And I think if Dalton goes out there and lets loose 3 or 4 threes and knocks down a couple of them, then you got exactly what you were hoping for from Dalton. and you go from there. Strouder was actually able to hang for much of the fourth quarter, which I thought was pretty impressive.
Yeah.
From the Nuggets defensively. But yeah, I think there's a middle ground here where I'm a little nervous about the thing. And I think next year, if he is still on the roster and if he's not able to do that, then he's a bust of a first round pick.
My point only is that we didn't exhaust all our options, right?
Yeah,
I
like
mean,
they didn't even try it.
we
That's
didn't even try it. We were struggling. If Dalton's going to get picked on, fine. We're switching everything and then sending two, similar to the way that Denver was defending Shea, right? Jokic was off the floor during those Strawther minutes, and they were just saying, all right, if Shea gets the ball, we're trapping him. He's going to find cutters on the baseline. We do not care if Lou Dort is open. Go ahead and shoot threes that touch the ceiling. We're going to live with those shots. And so he was able to survive out there. And I think he hit a big corner three in the fourth as well. But yeah, I just would have liked to seen it out there with the way we struggled shooting. Like pairing a knockdown shooter with Luka is kind of the point. That's the whole reason you have these amazing playmakers, is that you put
especially
shooting
while the
around them.
offense struggled the way that it
Yeah,
did.
we could not shoot in this series. Other than besides, I think game two, all the other games we really struggled. So just having a guy who's the reason he's on that bench is because he can shoot, and we never tried it. So yeah, hopefully in year two, Dalton maybe gets more of a chance.
All right, let's go ahead and dive into the definitive. I just got to make sure because I thought I heard my son crying, and we're good. All right, so is it my daughter crying? That'd be weird. No, we're good. All right, so it's 11 o'clock. my wife is sound asleep, so I'm in charge of the kids right now. But yeah, let's talk about the definitive Austin Reaves conversation.
Okay.
And Dan Wojcicki wrote a really good piece for the LA Times mail. It's not like part of his official offering with the Times. It's the thing that they send out to the email subscribers. But it was really good, and I thought it was succinct, and it told the story. I honestly, I thought it was really good writing in that it offered the information, it offered the context, and then it offered what he predicts as kind of the result to the offseason here for Austin. I hope you guys check it out. And essentially the crux of it is that based on the conversations he's having there at the NBA's draft combine in Chicago, that the anticipation is that Austin Reaves will not be traded. And it's for a few reasons. It's because of the way that the Lakers value him internally. It's because of the fact that any team that trades for him is nervous about him potentially leaving via free agency after next year. And it's also because of the story of Austin Reaves being undrafted and reaching the heights that he has. My thing is, as you guys know, as we have, as I've talked to you guys about on this show since the beginning of the all too early Lakers offseason, that's all the same stuff I've been hearing about Austin too. That it feels really unlikely that Austin is going to be moved. It is, the Lakers love Austin Reaves, the player and the person. Dark Galaxy with a good point here. 25-4 is elite production for somebody at the amount of money that he is making. And so, yeah, I think it's far more likely than not that Austin starts the season with the Lakers next year. Because if the Lakers were to trade him, it would have to be for a current All-Star, a recent All-Star, or somebody who is about to become an All-Star. So, and the Lakers, I think part of them thinks that Austin could potentially be an All-Star next year. And I think that's worth noting. So the reason I wanted to have this conversation, Roz, is to suss out that subject, but also kind of clarify, I think, this show's position on Austin. I don't want to trade Austin. Like, it's not something that I headed into the offseason and was like, All right, let's go. Let's
Mm-hmm.
like Austin can't be a Laker anymore. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm a little nervous that the best trade asset that the Lakers have could be lost for nothing as soon as next offseason. That makes me a little nervous. I'm really nervous about the improvements that I know that the Lakers have to make and how few assets they have to work with in order to make those improvements. And third, I'm really nervous that we go through, even if the Lakers have a successful regular season with Luka and with LeBron and with Austin, that the offense might just devolve back into Luka ball, and we just have a sequel of the series that we just saw Austin have a couple of weeks ago. So
Mm-hmm.
I like, from where I'm standing, there are things that I would like to avoid. I don't think those things that I would like to avoid are such that just trade him for anything. Right. And I think
Sure.
I think that's the thing that I hope people haven't taken from the show to this point, that like I just want him traded for the sake of being traded. No, if the Lakers trade him, it has to check a box, not just now, but moving forward into the Luka Doncic era.
Yeah, I know. I think that makes a lot of sense. And like every time this is brought up, it's the two extremes get thrown in your face, right? Like I tweeted today about, in terms of his numbers and just the nonsensical trades. People are like, well, is he untradeable? Obviously, he's not untradeable. There's maybe no untradeable player in the league, right? You can probably call Oklahoma City up and say we want Shea, and they're still probably a "what are you giving us" answer back. That's just the job of a general manager. You have to listen in. Not saying Shea would be traded, but I just don't think there's an untradeable player. My position has always been, and yes, it is factually true. Like it's 100% true. Austin Reaves is their best tradable asset. That's a factual thing. Depending on how you, I guess, weigh the first round picks that they can trade. But I would say
No,
now that
not
Lucas,
close.
that's what I'm saying. Now that Lucas,
You're talking about a 2031 first round pick, while the
right.
Lakers are still probably going to have Luka.
Well, that's what I'm saying. But before Luka, you could probably maybe say that first round pick, right? But now with Luka here, that pretty much diminishes its value. Where Austin definitely is. My point is trading Austin to me would be kind of a move in desperation, in my opinion. I feel like, and I understand they have holes to fill in the roster. My entire like point on conversation in this has been a solid team. Luka Doncic came in February. They had 2 months to kind of work together and figure it out. They went 23-13, which is about around a 54 win pace. People forget LeBron got hurt right in the middle of that, right? Lakers had an 8-game win streak. LeBron goes down for 7 games, and then they get into that hellacious March and April schedule, which gets right to the playoffs. Very little time for synergy and all that. I just think like there's no trade. You mentioned all the qualifications that it would take to trade Austin Reaves. There's just, to me, that player doesn't exist. Like I'm not trading him for a role player center that just because he fits better, but you're kind of giving up the amount of talent gap that you're doing in that deal. So like my big thing has been I want to kind of still build with these three and then reassess at the deadline. Rob Pelinka likes to work at the deadline anyway. And that's kind of how I see this summer going. I think they go center by committee. We can go through names if you want. But yeah,
No, not on the show. This isn't the center. This isn't the definitive center
Right.
conversation.
But like 22, 5-5 after Luka came on 50, 40, 90 numbers. And this is like, I would understand this was Austin's maybe first playoffs or second playoffs. Like, you know what I mean? Where he really showed that he was not up for the moment. The lights were too bright, but that's just not true. Like he's been good in previous playoffs before. He's shown a capability to be the ball handler in those positions. He didn't shoot well in this series, but he didn't shy from the moment, didn't pass up shots, wasn't scared to shoot. He's improved every single year. He got 39 votes for most improved this year. It's just, this is a really good player that's still developing, and it's just not where I would look to shift the roster, Anthony. Does that make sense? Like when I look at this team and look at what we need to get better at, I just don't want to go back so far in one direction to improve another. It feels like a neutral at best acquisition when you're looking in that manner. So I just don't see one available unless the guy from Milwaukee decides and is able to kind of force his way somewhere. But other than that, I just don't see moves that make a lot of sense where Austin's in the deal.
So one of the points made in the comments here, J.K. Lobos, I put it up a second ago. I'll put it back up. The reporters, whatever, the same things were said about AD or probably any player that is a fan favorite. They are not available until they are.
Sure.
That's fair. And I think what Raj and I are trying to say is that, like, based on the players that we know to be available right now, there isn't anybody on the market right now that we would say, okay, yeah, trade Austin for that guy. Maybe that changes and some players become available because teams start positioning themselves for KD or Giannis or, like the Boston Celtics or, if they decide to blow it up, maybe, Derek White becomes available, something like that. But as it stands right now, there's just the market. There isn't anybody on the market right now that I would say, okay, yeah, go get him. Right. And I think that's worth noting. The reason I also wanted to have this conversation is because, like, I am still nervous about paying Austin Reaves $30+ million a year on a Luka team. And I say that, and it's like it's going to be taken as criticism of either Austin or Luka or both. And I really don't mean that. It's just the reality of the situation here, where when the Lakers get to the postseason, Luka's going to have the ball in his have the basketball in his hands. And if that is the entirety of the Lakers offense, and you're basically turning Austin back into a 3-and-D role player, that's not what he is. And I also am nervous about Austin being a $30 million a year 3-and-D role player, because that's too much to pay somebody who just does that, and does that at the lowered level that Austin will, because Austin is never going to be the guy who makes up for his lack of touches on the defensive end, right? LeBron was able to even try that this year because he's LeBron bleeping James, even at 41. But at no point in Austin's life will he ever be able to say, like, all right, I'm not going to have the ball here. You know what? I'm going to go lock down on the other end. No, that's not who Austin is. So what do you think about the notion of Austin Reaves on a Luka team?
So this is what's interesting. If you watch the end of that regular season, right, that's not really like how it was. In the playoffs, it drifted towards that. And I think as we played more and more exaggerated small ball, the offense kind of diluted to what it was because all the switching that was going on, no rim threat, no lob threat, right? So it became a lot of one-on-one basketball. But I think, like, if JJ had to do it over again, there would be more ball movement, more actions where they're involved together. Like Austin and Luka should be, Anthony, a dynamic offensive backcourt. Like just in basketball theory and on the floor, like those two should be very harmonious working together, either where they're screening for each other or one's attacking while one's another threat on the other side of the floor. I think we left a lot of meat on the bone in terms of creativity. And again, I blame a lot of that not having a center on the floor, like having no versatility to what your offense can be. We try to make LeBron into that. We really try to force Rui into that. I credit the Wolves for, being very smart. Yeah, Vando as well. We try to make as a screener, right?
Did it with Gabe. Gabe was setting picks.
Yeah, that's actually LeBron.
Role.
Yeah, and LeBron likes like a lot of inverted screens with guards and stuff like that. But I thought our offense became very like rudimentary, where it was just one action and that's all we ran, and it forced Luka to take a lot of step back threes and a lot of stuff that really wore on his legs. And you're right, it was a lot of Austin in the corner, LeBron in the corner, just watching. And I think there's just more flow that can be created. Basketball is not an RPG game. You know what I mean? It's not like LeBron shoot, now Luka shoot, now Austin shoot. All right, let's flip it. Like that's not like it's a flow. It should be where all three of them can work together. And I thought we got away from that. And I think to me it would be a mistake of cutting that off after 2 months, Anthony, of film in basketball of a team that was successful. They were able to fight towards the 3 seed, a lot of injuries, a lot of, stuff that, went wrong, and we're still able to be a very effective basketball team. I just hate that the way it ended, going down with 5 guys in terms of all the only guys you trusted. So I put a lot of kind of stock in terms of that is why they lost. But and again, even with that all being said, the series was decided in game 3 and 4 on a clutch time situation where Anthony Edwards outdueled, our 2 stars, and that's why the season ended. But yeah, I still think that's still a credible team you can build around, and there's stuff you need around those 3 in terms of, I think you need another on-ball defender, and you just need a center, and I'd like to see what that looks like before chopping this off, in an off season, before we get to see a training camp with it, a little bit more creativity on the offensive end. But it would be a shame, wouldn't it? Like, if that's the last that we get of the Austin, Luka, LeBron trio, that's how it ends and it's cut for like a package of, a rim running center and a 3-and-D play. Like, I think it would be a mistake to do that, but that's where I'm at.
All right, I'm gonna do the thing you do.
Mm-hmm.
I think even the devil needs an advocate. So I'm gonna play devil's advocate here and say,
Okay.
Isn't this the highest trade value that Austin may ever have? Because you trade him now, you give that team ample opportunity to put that extension offer on the table, have those extension conversations with him. In the offseason, they can, if those trade talks happen, the team can have a conversation with him about what he's looking for in free agency and stuff like that. For the sake of return on investment, could this not be seen as the best time to trade him? If you're looking at reallocating resources elsewhere across the roster, couldn't this just be the time to do that with Austin?
I mean, I guess technically it could. We don't know how he'll play next year, right? You could send him to some team and he turns into the on-ball guard that I'm sure he thinks he is, right? Obviously, he won't get that full chance here with Luka at the helm, but it definitely can be. Again, when you take it to the next level and you start bringing up names, it becomes really tough. Like, the return on it is just not worth the trade, in my opinion. And his salary, Anthony, is so low that all the stuff that you'd have to add on to it to make that work, I think the bang for your buck would just not be enough for me to do that. And like, we do this all the time, like, in terms of, there's a lot of players who have really bad series and, teams kind of say, all right, we gotta cut loose, and they play well on other teams. But yeah, and you brought it, like, I think Dan wrote about it as well as in terms of the story with Austin as well, which I think does matter in some respects here. Austin is a organizational win, right? Like Luka is a Rob Pelinka win, in my opinion. But
or a Nico loss.
Yeah, but someone has to win if someone loses, right? There's a loser, there's a winner. So I feel like Rob has the Luka win. Austin feels like an organization. Yeah, sure. But yeah, Austin feels like an organizational win, which matters to organizations. And like, again, I just think it would be a mistake. 30 million does sound like a lot, but does Austin look like a player that's going to decline? That's going to get worse? That, you know what I mean? Like,
actually, that's a good point. All right, so I want to go down this path.
Okay.
So we had this conversation briefly on Slack, and the point that I made, was I'm nervous because Austin, I think, inarguably is getting the most he possibly can from his athleticism. And I don't anticipate Austin at this age, right? He's heading into his age 26 or 27 season.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he's going to magically get more athletic, right? If the Lakers were going to hire somebody who would magically make Austin Reaves more athletic, they would pay that person a lot more than $250K a year. That person is worth $1 million more or more. So if he's already getting the most out of his athleticism right now, and that athleticism dips even a little bit. It's kind of like a junk ball pitcher in baseball, where they get everything out of their arm that they possibly can. But once that velocity dips below the barrier for entry, and that like 91 mile an hour fastball becomes an 88 mile an hour fastball or an 87 mile an hour fastball. Now that's just BP. Now that's just batting practice. And that pitcher just immediately declines. And what I'm nervous about Austin with the way that he's going to age is what happens when his athleticism dips a little bit. We already saw what it looked like when he looked uncomfortable trying to shoot from 3-point range with just like half a beat less time that he has in the regular season. That did not look good. His percentage points dipped way lower when he had to speed up his release. We saw what it looked like in that series when the other team had length and athleticism advantages over Austin that became insurmountable. Like if his athleticism dips, and we're probably talking away from here, we're probably talking a couple of contracts from now.
Well,
To be
that's what I was
absolutely
gonna
clear.
that's what I was gonna say. He's 26. Like,
Yeah, I don't know. I'm saying like we're probably talking a couple of contracts from here, so this isn't an immediate concern.
okay.
But I also don't want to be paying a guy 30 almost. I mean, after his next contract, you could be looking at like $40 million a year. You know, because of the way that the contracts increase.
Balloon. Mm-hmm.
That I don't want to be on the hook for a guy when that athleticism dips just enough to where now all of a sudden it's like, oh man, what is this guy? You know?
Yeah, that doesn't like we're on Luka Doncic's boat, right? And that like this is the sail that we're on. And so right now we're on when you have a 20, and you say this all the time, right? When you have an in your prime superstar, you got to go for it. Like you are going for it, right? And to me, I'm not worried about Austin's next deal. He's 26-year-old. He's 26-year-old. I don't think the athleticism is going to decline anytime soon, at least during the contract that he's going to sign, whatever, whether he takes the extension this summer or not. Or takes the one after. I just don't see a decline. And he relies a lot more to me on skill than his athleticism. Like obviously that his ability to kind of branch off. And I think his strength that has increased has helped his game as well, getting the free throw line and stuff like that. But yeah, that's not something that really concerns me. Again, like if you look at the salaries of the players at that like 30 million range, I mean, you have Jordan Poole at that range. You have Tyler Hero at that range. DeJounte Murray's at that range. CJ McCollum's at 33. Desmond Bane makes 34. You can go down the list of players. Tyrese Maxey makes 35. You could say Maxey's better than him, but yeah, like you just look at the list of these guys. This is kind of how it goes. And with the cap,
all but Maxey of those guys seem like bad contracts.
I mean, Bane I think was a fine contract when that was signed, and now with how Memphis is kind of catered, you can say that as well. But I'm just talking about like I think Emmanuel quickly signed a similar extension type of deal, right, which is around $30 million a year as well. And with the cap going up, I just again, I'm not sure if that's the number.
That's a thing we should take into account here is that the cap going up it does impact the way that we might look at his next deal, but it also might impact his actual next deal, the number that he actually lands on, because as the cap is getting ready to go up, you're negotiating.
Right. You asked for more, most definitely. So, but again, that depends on what his next year is as well. Right. And so like, we don't know. I think for going into next season, I think that's what the conversation has dominated around. Are you better with Austin Reaves on the team or not with the trades that are available? And I would say you're better with Austin Reaves on the team. Would you agree with that?
With the trades that we believe to be available right now?
Right now, yes.
Yes. I think so.
Okay.
It's just this is where the Luka trade warps our brains though, right? Because it's like, if you would have asked me before Anthony Davis was traded, you would have said like, yeah, with the trades that we believe to be available right now, there is no reason whatsoever to trade Anthony Davis.
Sure.
And you're like, hold on, Luka was available. So
But that's the bar, right? Like that's the bar. It's kind of like I from there, it's tough to kind of gauge where the trades can come through. But just the ones I've seen and seen mocked and are sent to me, people DMing me 5-team trades. Please, like I don't want to zoom in. It's hard to zoom in.
All right, here's what I'll do for people. Rather than zero in on names or anything like that, here are teams to keep an eye on. And the ripple effect from the decisions that they have to make this offseason. First and foremost, I think, is the Boston Celtics, because they went from a team that we already knew they were looking to shed salary, and now they aren't going to have Jason Tatum for probably a year. And like, are they going to be okay with basically running back a big chunk of their roster even without Jason Tatum next year? Or are they going to try to acquire a few more assets for whenever Jason Tatum comes back? That's going to be one team to keep an eye on, and the ripple effect from their decisions are going to be immense throughout the rest of the league. The Phoenix Suns and their decision on whether or not they're going to trade Kevin Durant. The Milwaukee Bucks and their decision on whether or not Giannis is going to want out. The Memphis Grizzlies, as their core, I think, has kind of topped out at a pretty meh return, right? So I think one of Ja or Bane are gone after this year. And then from there, it's like, either there's somebody on those rosters that maybe you would prefer to move Austin for, or maybe there's somebody on a different roster who might become available because of the ripple effect from those guys from those teams that I mentioned becoming available. Like, the market right now, while the playoffs are still going on, it's just too impossible to predict. So like, I'm not going to go out and definitively say that the market is not conducive to an Austin Reaves trade right now, because we have no earthly idea what the market is going to be.
Sure. So before we get into that, because that's even getting ahead, we're having the definitive Austin Reaves conversation right now. Yeah. I think a big question, and the one that I get the most, or the one I get attacked for the most, is how real was let's forget the start of the year. Let's just go with the numbers when Luka got here.
Yeah.
22, 5-5 on 50, 40, 90. And then it is what the playoffs was. To you, how much of that? Because I think if you believe those numbers are real, if you believe 22, 5-5 is a pairing to put next to Luka Doncic, and you think that is legit, then I think a lot of these trades really go down, right? A lot of these trades get killed, in my opinion, if you believe that's really the player that he is. So how much of that to you was the player he actually is, or how much of that is the regular season kind of, being what it is, separated from the playoffs?
I'll answer that in a somewhat different way.
Okay.
What version do you think the Lakers are going to be in the postseason? The version that we saw that was conducive and allowed for the production that we saw from Austin Reaves, or the one in the postseason that relied so heavily on Luka Ball? And I saw a comment on up there earlier where it's like, are you blaming Luka for the way that Austin played in the postseason? No, I'm not. I'm blaming the lack of leadership from the head coaching position to get the team back to the identity. What do we start this episode with, Raj? What was one of the things that one of the points that I made about the postseason back in the first couple segments of the show, this episode, was as soon as you ditch the identity that got you to the postseason, your postseason is over. It's just a matter of time. And what we saw from the Lakers in this series against the Minnesota Timberwolves was they completely ditched the identity that got them to the postseason in the first place. And that season was over. The Lakers season ended right then and there. And I'm not blaming Luka. I'm blaming Redick. I'm blaming his head coaching staff. I'm blaming the leadership across this organization that at no point was like, yeah, we should maybe get back to the type of offense that allowed Austin Reaves to be the guy that we were talking about as a third star going into the postseason.
100%.
So like when you're asking, I believe that Austin is actually that guy.
Okay.
Like if that's what you're asking,
Yes.
the simplest answer to that question is I believe Austin is actually that guy. However, I
You have
don't know if
concerns.
I
Yeah.
believe that the Lakers are going to consistently provide a situation where Austin can be that guy.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
I would
I think.
rather trade like maybe that's reason enough to trade him in the regular season where so he proves once again that he is that guy, and maybe more guys become available over the course of the regular season, and then you kind of revisit this at the trade deadline. Maybe that's what, and I think that's how this is going to play out anyway. That's what I've been saying from day one here. But it's not as simple as, do you think that's who that is? I 100% think that that's who Austin is. I really do. But I don't know if that's who he's going to be on the Los Angeles Lakers so long as Luka Doncic is going to be, or so long as they play heliocentric basketball around Luka.
I think that's 100% fair, and the reason I asked that is because I think we've had this conversation, and my biggest gripe in terms of what we did in the playoffs is it is not what we did to close the regular season at all. Like we played
Yeah.
Jackson 10 to 15 minutes or 20 minutes. We had centers in the rotation that were running ball screens with
Koloko.
Luka Doncic. We were running with LeBron, as a big man running screens and all that stuff. It's just we went away from everything. We really went and exaggerated the basketball into small ball. And I thought that created, again, with small ball, you can be more creative as well. I thought we were really just kind of really one dimensional with our scoring. But I'm with you on that. I think there is some things that need to be worked out for Luka, Austin, and LeBron to all flourish in their own ways, right? And I think what we saw in the playoffs was not the most conducive way to work all three of those. And that's something that's going to be had a conversation that JJ is going to need to have with the general manager, Rob Pelinka, with Luka Doncic. All these guys need to be involved in some understanding. And that's what's like upsetting to me, is that we went into the playoffs with a big man that our coach clearly was never going to play. And since he didn't, we had 5 guys to play, and our style of basketball changed, but the players didn't change, right? And so that's where I'm like, I would like to see the players in a better environment where they can thrive and be successful, and maybe have a big man to play with. And I do think, like Austin, LeBron, and Luka, there is some care, there is some sensitivity that's needed in roster building. There's definitely, they have clear deficiencies that need to be made up for. But if you can make up for them, I think there's a real offensive boost that this team can get to that we saw in bits and pieces, Anthony. Like, how excited were we when they beat Oklahoma City on the road and we came and talked about it,
And
right?
how they beat them, Raj?
Yeah, exactly. And there's
It wasn't Luka ball.
no, the ball was moving, the ball was popping. We had a bunch of movement, and for it to die, and like our death in the playoffs felt so slow. It was just kind of this.
Yeah.
It was clear that Minnesota figured us out. And by the end of that series, it was over. That we just could not score. But yeah, that's why I think this is an interesting conversation. I totally understand people who are like, no, we got to just we got to get all the players that fit, perfectly around Luka now. And I understand that sentiment. But I just think the trade for, the Austin Reaves, at least trade packages that are out there now, I don't see one that makes the Lakers better for the season coming up.
Last thing before we get you out of here, as I think you and I probably lean towards not trading Austin this summer, then that means the Lakers have to try to figure out a way to build a roster around Luka, around Austin, around LeBron.
Mm-hmm.
That means getting faster. I think that it has to be a priority. It means bringing in centers, plural.
Yep.
Do you think the Lakers have enough assets without moving Austin to make to build a roster around him, Luka, and LeBron that can win a championship next year?
I do. I think they do. They have Dalton still to move. They have a first round
Rui's got to
pick.
go.
They have swaps. They have Rui, right, as well, that they can kind of dangle to other teams. I really do. People think I'm kidding. Like, I posted 3 Koloko highlights yesterday, and I got some messages.
You want to have the Koloko conversation?
Well, people are asking me if I'm okay. I'm all right. Like, that was just, I just posted
It's
those
not
with
just
Noka.
people, man. I would texted you multiple times over the course of the day, and it was, like, no response. Are you okay? Are you all right?
I'm good. But yeah, like, just athletic bigs that can catch. I don't think that's a tough archetype to find around the league. And look, and he made Jackson Hayes look like a player that might get $10 million a year before people saw Jackson Hayes played in the playoffs. But yeah, I think there's avenues to improve. And I think there are clear deficiencies in the roster that you can find and improve in. I think they need a on-ball just defender. And part of this too, Anthony, is like we just can't switch as much as we were. Like just giving up the switch as we did. Like watch all these other teams play. How many times did Jamal Murray get switched on to Shea, or like, Shea gets the matchup he wants? Very few, right? Denver makes it really tough. All these other teams are able to kind of make sure Tyrese Halliburton also they hide them. They hide him correctly. Jalen Brunson doesn't just play one-on-one with Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum before he got hurt. Like there was defensive game plans that went into it. It's just that's some of this too. The personnel mixed with the scheme, mixed with the center. And I think there's a lot of areas for growth. And that says a lot for a team that finished with 53 wins or whatever it was. So yeah, I still think there's a route to improve. And if the Austin trade comes that makes sense, like I'm not saying you don't answer the phone. I don't see one that makes a lot of sense right now in the middle of May. I can't believe you're letting me talk trades in May. This is so insane.
I'm not letting you. We have to. What the fuck else are we going to talk about? There's no Lakers basketball to talk about. What do you want me to talk about? Like, hey man, I just rewatched game 1. Will you believe what I just found? What?
I have game 5 queued up to go watch all the Maxi Kleber minutes. But
oh
yeah.
God, that is Rosh, are you
there's only 5 minutes of those. It won't take too long. So.
I still can't believe that was a thing. Like I can't believe that was a thing. Oh man, the same GM who made the decision to not convert Koloko is in charge of this offseason. I'm not nervous at all. All right. Let's anything else? All right. Do you want to have the Koloko conversation?
Let's have it. All right. People think I'm crazy.
I'm going to set the table this way.
Okay.
Remember, the Lakers believed enough in Koloko.
Yes.
To let Colin Castleton, a kid that the Lakers liked quite a bit, just walk. They just said, and it wasn't that they just let Colin Castleton walk because Koloko was definitely coming. Remember, there was a long time there while the Lakers were still waiting to find out if the league was actually going to clear Christian Koloko. So then they did clear Koloko. Koloko, by the way, started on a Toronto Raptors team that made it to the playoffs before he dealt with his blood clotting issue. So it's not that like at no point in his life was Christian Koloko ever an NBA player. This guy at one point got to the Lakers, and then I thought helped keep the Lakers afloat during some of those stretches where they literally had no other centers available. Jackson Hayes dealt with injuries over the course of the year. Anthony Davis dealt with some injuries over the course of the year. Christian Wood never played for the Lakers or anybody this year. Am I missing anybody else? Who was there?
Alex Len, are you talking about?
No, the Lakers never had any other centers before they brought in Koloko, right?
I don't think so. I think that was.
I know that they thought maybe Vando would eventually be, but not really. And as we saw in the postseason, it didn't quite work out that way. But anyway, the reason I make all of those points is because eventually the Lakers, I don't know what it was, got bored. Like it's actually pretty fitting because this is how a lot of things with the Lakers goes. But I thought Koloko was fine, perfectly passable as an NBA big. And then as it came closer and closer and closer to the time when the Lakers were going to have to make a decision on converting him, they became infatuated with Trey Jemison and began playing him more and more and more and more and more. And that extended the amount of time that they had to make a decision on Koloko. And I think because they liked both of those guys, they decided that neither was all that important. And they brought in Alex Len. On the buyout market and wound up not really they kicked the can so far down the road that they ran out of road. And so, they arrive at a place because of that series of decisions where Jackson Hayes is their only passable center in the postseason, and he was deemed unplayable too. And there's a good chance that Koloko would have been deemed unplayable in the postseason too, and I think that's part of this conversation as well. But all of this is to say that it does feel like they wasted a pretty big opportunity that just kind of fell in their laps. They found I wouldn't say a lottery ticket. Well, they found it. They saw $100 bill floating down the sidewalk, and they were like, "Oh, how about that?" And then somebody behind them is probably going to grab it. That's, I think, how I would describe the Christian Koloko experience.
Yeah, like to me, it is a little bit of a lottery like ticket, right? Because of what the needs were. Like this isn't just you need. This is
Lottery
you
ticket
need.
makes you a millionaire. So,
Okay, sure, all right.
I would say it's like I don't even know what it'd be.
Scratcher
I would say
ticket with a good
$100
amount.
bill. I would say $100 bill.
All right.
In NBA.
Yeah. So like the disappointing part, and again, JJ spoke about this to start the season, and I think they actually did a fantastic job, Anthony, of having the G League and the Lakers like in sync, right? We got Jordan Goodwin out of it, who earned such a spot. He got a standard contract, got into playoff games as well. Trey Jameson, I totally understood it. Big bruiser guy, physical dude. Lakers needed a guy that just come in and muck things up and get offensive rebounds. Totally understood it. My only issue was, and Koloko had 50 games to use. They used all of his 50 games. To go into the playoffs without a center made no sense. Alex Len was never going to play. It's clear, and should not have. Honestly, I'm concerned. He should not have been playing basketball. It doesn't look like a guy that should have been running up and down the court anyway. I don't say this lightly. Like to me, Koloko was like one of the best defensive young prospects, like total. Like I was so excited when we got him in the summer because I thought like this is a guy that was really good for Toronto. Like he was an awesome young piece. He was part of their little young system. I'm not really sure what Masai is doing anymore, but like he was part of their like young.
Get ready to work for Atlanta.
Yeah, but he was part of their kind of young system that they were growing, and I know just being in the South Bay circle, they're really happy Koloko's in their farm system, right? As a guy that's developing kind of with them. But Anthony, I think you would you have changed the series? Like, I don't think so. But just having a guy to go to, one of the clips I posted was Gabe Vincent got caught against Naz Reid, and Koloko came and got a weak side block against the Wolves. It's like just not having a single dude you can kind of have as a help defender there, especially with Jackson losing the trust that he did. And I thought, like, I posted the numbers. Luka and Koloko were like a plus 18, and I know that's a super small sample, but guess what? Let me see a bigger sample then. Let me see it. Let me see it fail. And we just never got the shot to see it. And I thought every time he came in, he was productive. He had some fouls for sure. There was a little bit of adjustment from the G League to the NBA, as there always is.
I mean, I wouldn't say every time. If he was productive every time, I don't think we're having this conversation.
Not every time, but I thought he was pretty productive
most
in the
of the
minutes
time,
and
I would say.
chances he got. Yes, and look, he didn't get perfect opportunities, right? Obviously, he plays when there's a ton of people out or whatever it was. He had a really nice home game against Denver. I thought he played well on the road as well against Denver. Had a game, I believe, like the Minnesota game. Had another one, I think, in Memphis where he got some time. A home game against Phoenix where he was just like, what I want from that position is don't hurt me, right? Like you don't have to be a star. You don't have to go crazy.
Yeah.
You just don't make a ton of mistakes, a ton of fouls, like, doing dumb stuff. And I thought Koloko was more than standard for that. But yeah, it's disappointing to me. He's the best defensive center in the G League. Like I've seen a bunch of guys come through there, and I think Koloko was the best. Averaged 3 blocks a game down there. He was second on the Lakers in block percentage with the minutes that he played. I think he's a legit rim protector and young defensive center that catches lobs. And we employ Luka Doncic. Like made no sense for him not to play. So I know I look crazy posting his highlights at 11 p.m. whatever it was, but yeah, watching the Wolves and then watching us not play big man was extremely frustrating. So hopefully Koloko's still on the team next year. He's an unrestricted free agent, can sign with anybody. Jamison is actually still on a 2-way. So we'll see if they keep that and keep him on the 2-way into next year. But I hope Koloko's back. I think he's a fine third string center. Second string, like it gets a little bit more tricky, but third string center, Koloko's more than capable of doing that. So yeah, that's my That's my Koloko rant. I feel a lot better.
Here's I agree with most of what you said, obviously, aside from every time he was on the court, he was good. Like,
Okay,
I wouldn't go that far.
sure.
Um, I think again this goes back to JJ and some of his kind of dogmatic beliefs in spacing and the way that he sees basketball.
Okay.
One of the things that JJ said after the season that he was pretty widely lauded for, that I actually really kind of disagreed about, was how he talked about how he wants to coach the team that he has and not the team that he wants.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for most of the regular season, for maybe all of the regular season, I think I would have agreed
Yeah.
with that. How I thought he did a very good job coaching the group that he had for the most part. But then when he got into the postseason, and this is how it happens, man. Like as the stakes get higher, you get more comfortable. You fall back to what makes you comfortable. I'm
Sure.
going to a pitch and putt thing tomorrow in my neighborhood. One of my neighbors down the street put in like a putting green and has like an area where you can pitch onto the putting green, and he does like this little tournament. And there's some money involved and stuff like that. And I've been working on some of my pitching and some of my technique, and I've been on YouTube, and it's like, all right, put your hands here and lean this way and do all this stuff, and you can generate a little bit more spin and a little bit more touch around the greens if you do this, that, and the other. And I've been doing all of that, and I feel fairly comfortable with it. But when the money is on the line, you know what I'm probably going to do? Probably going to rely on the shit that I've done for my entire life. And I think that's what we saw from JJ Redick, right? Where I thought over the course of the regular season, when the stakes were a little bit lower, and especially when the way that people were talking about him was a lot more positive, he was a lot more open to, you know what? Let's bring Koloko in. Let's try out Jemison and let's make it work the best that we possibly can. But then as he felt a little bit more criticism, as he felt the pressure, and as the stakes rose and the temperature got hotter and hotter and hotter, we saw JJ become JJ. And I think one of the things that he's really going to have to work on in those higher stakes moments is recentering himself and coaching the team that he has, not the team that he wants. And I think one of the guys who fell victim to that more than anybody else, because I think it was a pre-made decision going into the postseason, was like, you know what? We may as well just keep Alex Len. We know he sucks, but we may as well just keep him. We don't think Jemison or Koloko are going to play. And this is essentially what I've heard about the decision, like the line of decisions, not in such rude terms or anything like that. But it was essentially like, look, we can piss off Alex Len's agent by making him renege on the contract that he verbally agreed to with Indiana. And then cutting him after he's playoff eligible anyway. You can piss off his agent that way. For the sake of Jemison or Koloko, who we also don't think are going to play either.
Sure.
Or we could just write it out and hope that this problem doesn't pop up again. And it did pop up again. And I think it was a pretty horrendous decision and a pretty tough look on everybody involved. JJ, Pelinka, everybody, to arrive at a place in the postseason where Jackson is the only traditional center that you feel like you're even somewhat comfortable playing, and then even he was deemed unplayable too. So, yeah, I would like to see Koloko get more of an honest chance next year. If I had to choose, honestly, here's a fun question: if you had to choose between Jackson and Koloko next year, who would you rather have on the roster?
Yeah, that's interesting. Man, I think Jackson's better still, but I feel like I can go grab two centers that are, in Jackson's capability. And I'd still like to see what Koloko is. Like I saw enough in the G League, and the G League is what it is. Obviously, it's not the same level of competition in athletes, but I'd like to see what translates to the next level, because I thought I did not get to see, enough film of that. So and I'll take it a step further, Anthony. I feel like we went in the playoffs and JJ's like, I'm really not going to play a big man at all. Like Jackson, even the
No,
minutes
that's
he was
exactly
getting.
why nobody was converted.
Right. So even the minutes that Jackson was getting was 4 or 5 minutes a game, right, in the playoffs before he was completely taken out. I think they went into the playoffs very much in this. We're playing Dorian at that other 5 spot, and we're going down with that. And that's the part that's shocking. You mentioned all the players that came in the game like during the regular season. Jordan Goodwin, another guy, like what a story for him to go from playing in the G League to starting on the Lakers to being in the playoff rotation to like that shows a level by JJ that he can kind of open up his mind and like be open to other ideas. But yeah, hopefully next season there's a little bit more in sync with the front office in terms of what big man he would play, because going down with no bigs I thought was just amazing and shocking, and something no other team is doing, let alone other teams are playing 2 bigs at the
No, it's
same
gone the
time.
opposite direction. Yeah.
Teams have gotten bigger and stronger. It's just,
Yeah.
and we went into the playoffs with like, yeah, let's play a small forward at center. Like, let's
The
go with
two
that.
teams who decided to do that were the Lakers and the Warriors, and they're both sitting at home now.
Mm-hmm.
And now, like the Warriors did so with Steph, who was like,
Right.
The best small ball player that any team has, basically. So you kind of get it a little bit more from that standpoint. But the Lakers doing so, knowing that you weren't going to play Alex Len is a tough look. So I think I mostly agree with you, Raj. I would actually rather have Koloko on the team next year than Jackson for multiple reasons. I believe in Koloko's upside above Jackson's. I don't think Jackson is wired mentally or emotionally to be a high stakes NBA basketball player.
Sure.
I'm going to be completely honest. What we saw from that video, I don't want that person anywhere near the team that I root for ever again. So yeah, I think it's kind of a no-brainer there in that regard. I think they're comparable players, and I just think Koloko's a much better dude. So yeah, I think I mostly agree with you, and I hope that you're right. And I hope that Koloko does get a legitimate chance on the Lakers next year. Look, the Lakers don't have many avenues to go down here. They
Sure.
have their taxpayer mid-level exception. They have veteran minimum contracts. They have two-way contracts. That's about it. Or they could trade Rui and expirings. They could trade the first rounder and expirings for a center. And I continue to hear that. So this is again where it's important to note the difference here. I continue to hear that most people around the league are linking Claxton to the Lakers. Not so much that I'm hearing, from Lakers people that, man, we sure do like Claxton. That's a pretty big differentiating factor there in the stuff that I'm hearing. But overall, I think if I had to predict it, I think the Lakers probably trade for a center in the like $10 to $20 million range. They probably use their mid-level exception on either a backup center or somebody who can offer a little bit more length and athleticism at the point of attack defensively. And then they take a couple swipes with the veteran minimums. And if you're going to just be taking swipes with veteran minimums, I think Koloko should get one of those. Shots in the dark.
Yeah, man, me too. I think that's where they go as well. The mid salary, kind of fill the center position by committee, and hopefully Koloko is one of those. But again, he's unrestricted free agent, so can kind of decide, pick his destination in that extent. But I hope he's back, because that's a very talented young center that was in your system. And it'd be a shame for him, to go to another team and watch him like all the other young Lakers that are now thriving on other teams, including playoff teams.
I'm seeing people mentioning Sabonis. I don't think that's what the Lakers need in any way, shape, or form.
He makes like $40 million a year too. There's no way.
Yeah, I just think he's a playoff what the faller? Is that what we're calling it? Like a
dropper, playoff dropper.
all right, Raj. Next time you and I get together, who do you want to have a definitive conversation about?
Ooh, definitive conversation. Jalen Hood, Shafino. Did we close the book on that already, or is that
all right? Here's a definitive conversation about Jalen Hood, Shafino.
Okay.
All right, that is going to do it here for this episode of the Lakers Lounge podcast. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Anthony Irwin, that is Raj Shapalu. We do have a bonus episode coming tomorrow. Pete and I are going to get together for a happy hour conversation on you guys' Friday afternoon to tune into. So keep an eye out for that. Best way to make sure you don't miss it is to hit that subscribe button. That is youtube.com/@LakersLounge to watch us live whenever that goes live. Raj, anything that you want to plug before we get you out of here?
Yeah, so we're doing this, we're writing about a bunch of the players from the roster as the season has ended. So I wrote about Koloko and and JHS Koloko and Bronny this week. So both of those are up on the site at silverscreenandroll.com.
Koloko and Bronny. There is no more on brand answer to that than you just gave right there. That is perfect. Have a great rest of your night. Make somebody else's. And we'll talk to you tomorrow.
Bye, everyone.